Today, let us look at what these tariff things are doing to South Africa and how we can win this fight between USA and South Africa, obviously, and other country that obviously USA is fighting with. So we believe that South Africa can take advantage or can win in some situation over these tariffs imposed by Trump, right? But before we even move to divert in terms of what we can do in order to win over tariffs, we have to still understand that tariffs is going to have a major effect in our economy. Not only in the economy of South Africa, but to the economy of other countries where those tariffs will be imposed to. So let us divert and see what this article is saying and then summarize it. South Africa has several competitive advantages it can lend into to avoid worst effects of US President Trump's tariffs on imports into the world's largest economy. These competitive advantages include exporting crucial minerals to the US, particularly the platinum group metals and manganese, and the dominant position of the most developed economy in Africa. So what we're basically saying here, we're saying US is benefiting on manganese as well as platinum in South Africa. So meaning to say we can take advantage by increasing the price of those two minerals that comes from our country, or alternatively increase the tariffs. But on the other side, we don't know whether we're going to be able to do that. Is it possible for us to do that? And will they continue to buy from us after they realize that we have increased tariffs as well as increase the price? The recent sell-off in global equity markets and subsequent rallies are evidence of how tariffs can influence inflation and consumption. This is premised on the idea that income will likely grow at a lower pace than goods inflation if the tariffs are implemented, and that tariffs will increasingly erode the capacity to consume. This can lead to profitability issues for corporations due to pressure on revenue and rising costs that can ignite the unemployment problem. So, as we see here, we have realized that this will cause a major issue in our global economy, right? We're going to have an issue in terms of company generating revenue. The inflation might go up because the companies now are trying to increase the price in order to take into account the tariffs that they have paid. And also that might result to unemployment because some companies will sit down and realize after they pay tariffs for their stock to come to South Africa or for their raw material to produce the finished goods, they are running at a loss. Once they realize they're running at a loss, they might close their business and get out of business because it's no longer profitable for them to be in business. So we see that these tariffs might be a major issue in our economy. But with that being said, with the risk of unemployment, with the risk of revenue going down for companies, with the risk of inflation going up, we do believe that as South African, we can win this fight. We can win this battle. But let's see what the analyst is saying in terms of us winning this fight. So Mzwai said that South Africa must leverage its competitive advantage to either negotiate with the Trump administration or minimize the impact of elevated tariffs on its export to the United States. Critical minerals such as platinum groups metals and manganese make up to 76% of South African export to the United States. Thus, South Africa is already relatively cushioned from the Trump's administration trade policy as tariff has not hit this export. South Africa should take this threat into account and focus on what it can produce better than anyone else, rather than spending resources trying to make it uncompetitive industrial global competitive competitive. Another advantage South African has, it is reduced reliance on export to the USA, with the rise in China as an export destination over the past 2 decades. So what we're looking here, we're saying there are a number of things that we can do in order to win this tariff fight. It's to sit down and negotiate with USA in terms of meeting each other, because we do need each other. Alternatively, we can sit down and say, hey, it's not working out. Let us export our minerals to China. So that's what we can do. And then we also need to further analyze Uguti in terms of GDP. We need to analyze Uguti, what is the impact or effects that it will have if you were to withdraw from exporting to the USA. While export make up to 30% of South Africa's GDP, export to the United States only make up around 9% of the value of the country's export. So yes, we are exporting 76% on their side, but we need to take into account that it's only 9% of the value of the GDP, which is pretty much, when you're looking at an overall level, it's big, but then we can still survive with the balance of the portion that comes from other countries. Right. So then we're seeing, however, Trump's trade war with China could significantly impact South African export demand, which could have a major impact on the local economy. So since now China also is fighting with the US, that might come back and hit us and have an effect as well on our side. Then Mzwai suggested that there are a number of things that we can do in order to win this fight of tariffs. So there are three things that he had looked at. I'm going to look at them with you, and then we're going to see whether we agree or we disagree and what else we think can be done. So what he said is that decrease price to offset the impact of tariffs and remain competitive. This could result in reduced margin of South African companies. As I have said earlier on, if we do reduce the prices, it might have business getting out of business because they can no longer sustain being in business. Meaning to say they are making a loss by being in business. We can try that, but not all companies might be successfully in reducing the current price of the products they are exporting outside of South Africa. So a deep analysis will have to be done on this area in order to ensure that only the companies that are able to reduce the price can reduce the price. So unfortunately, this can be done, but it's not really 100% effective. It might not even be 60% effective, considering that already some of the companies, they are getting very low margin. So reducing the price, it will have a dire effect on those companies. Second part, introduce subsidy for negatively impacted industry, which is unlikely given South African poor financial health. So when you look at this one, at least Mzwai has said, it's okay, these are the issues that we might not be able to introduce subsidy on those companies that are exporting outside the country. So you can even think our SA government had to increase the VAT by 0.5% simply because we don't have sufficient money. So for us to think that they can have money for subsidy to subsidize this company, it really might not be possible, right? So looking at this one, it also might not be possible. We can try to see whether it work given the valuable budgets in South Africa, which is not even enough for the current budgeted expenditure. So this one also, it's a little bit not gonna work, might work, but not 100%. Then the last part, access new markets where prevailing export prices are acceptable and competitive. particularly in Asia and Middle East. So this one is one that I can say 70% potentially it can work, given the fact that at least now we're looking at other market and we're not trying to reduce the price of what we're exporting or trying to get subsidy, which we're potentially not going to get. So overall, when you look at this, it talks about tariffs issues. When you look at these articles, it talk about the tariffs issues that we have. What we can say when we summarize, we know that it's going to put strain in South African economy. It might increase further the unemployment. The inflation rate might go up. Even the interest rate might be impacted if the economy is not doing well and the inflation is going up. And there's a potentially issue that we might go to recession, which is something that we obviously don't want to see happening in the country. So our hope and prayers is that we do get successfully in negotiating with USA to minimize the issue of tariffs or to go back to where we were initially before Trump introduced the tariffs. So thank you so much for listening to my channel. Can you please share, subscribe, and also recommend my page to people that you believe might be interested in the news that I am sharing. Thank you so much.